Hello, my name is Safari Salmon Mijage from Edukea Tanzania. Welcome from 60 students in the fifth topic, which is the rise of socialism. It is history too. As you remember, on the last session we ended on the situation before the revolution in China in 1949. So today we are going to see the causes of Chinese revolution in 1949. The first revolution was the good leadership of Mao Zedong. The good leadership of Mao Zedong. So you can see that Mao Zedong played a great role to the revolution of Chinese. Good leadership of Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong managed to mobilize the peasants in the countryside to oppose against the feudal dynasty, and later on they succeeded to make a revolution in 1949. It means that Mao Zedong was the good leader in China, and he managed to mobilize the peasants in the countryside and the other parts of China to oppose against the feudal dynasty, and later on the peasants with their leader Mao Zedong succeeded to make a revolution in 1949 to remove the provisional government that was there in China. Also, the second one was the philosophy of Confucius or Confucianism. The philosophy of Confucianism, this was the school of thoughts that were the educated one in China, and these philosophies developed among the people in China, which was insisting on cooperation, unity, working hard, and resisting exploitation, humiliation, and the oppression of the feudal class and the foreign imperialists. It means that these philosophies, which philosophy Confucianism, it means Chinese Confucianism was the philosophies developed among the people in China, which was insisting on cooperation. It means working on cooperation, working hard, unity, resisting exploitation, humiliation, and the oppression of the feudal class and the foreign imperialism or foreign imperialists. Hence, the philosophy was contributed in one way or another towards the success of revolution in 1949 in China. As you can see that, hence the philosophy of Confucianism led people in China to unite themselves under comrade Mao Zedong to make the Chinese Revolution in 1949. Another factor for the rise for the Chinese Revolution in China was, it means that during the feudal class, the Chinese were oppressed, exploited, tortured, harassed by the feudal class in the country, and they had no freedom to talk and propose anything about the development of their country. Therefore, they united under the leadership of Mao Zedong to make the Chinese Revolution in 1949. So you can see that the people of China, during the feudal class, the Chinese were oppressed, harassed, also tortured, and that's why under the comrade Mao Zedong organized and managed the people to fight for their freedom of talk, of speak, propose anything about the development of their country, also to unite together to form the standing government under Mao Zedong. And that's why in 1949 China succeeded to make revolution. Also, the problems of the Chinese, to mean that China had been affected by the different problems. And during the feudal rule, the Chinese society faced with a lot of problems like unemployment, famine, and hunger. You can see that during the feudal rule or feudal system, Chinese society faced with a lot of problems like unemployment, famine, and hunger, floods in the country, droughts, epidemic disease, poor provision of social services, and the Chinese society to be unsatisfied with the ruling feudal class, therefore decided to unite together under the Mao Zedong to make Chinese revolution in 1949. Another factor for the Chinese revolution of 1949 was the teaching of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. The teachings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels contributed in one way or another to accelerate the Chinese revolution, because Mao Zedong was the founder of Chinese revolution, led the book of Karl Marx and Engels, which was emphasizing the revolution as the solution to establish socialism. Hence, Mao used the teachings of Karl Marx to ensure that the Chinese revolution is planned and successful, made by the Chinese peasants and their leadership in 1949. Also, another factor was the failure of Chinese rule to end the conflicts with Japan. Was also another matter that made Chinese revolution to occur in 1949. You can say that during the feudal rule in China, Japan, which was the traditional enemy of China, used to attack and annex some parts of China for raw materials like coal and iron ore. And the Chinese rule kept quiet during those energies. For example, in 1931, when Japan attacked Manchuria, and in 1937 and 1936, as well as 1940. Hence, the people accorded the feudal ruling class for failure to dissolve the conflicts, and they had supported Mao Zedong for Chinese revolution in 1949. This was because of the feudal ruling class was failed to countercheck the attack or invasion that was made by Japan, as was the traditional enemy of China by that time. You can see that in different years, Japan was invading China to get the raw materials which were highly needed in Japan, like coal and iron ore. So you can see Manchuria was attacked by Japan in 1931, and that's why the majority of China decided to support the comrade Mao Zedong to ensure that the revolution is taking place in China, and that's why in 1949 Chinese revolution was occurred. After looking at the causes of Chinese revolution of 1949, let us see the political and economic developments in China since 1949. The revolution in China, which was conducted by Chinese Communist Party under comrade Mao Zedong for almost 30 years, from 1921 to 1949, was mostly centered in struggle rural areas, hence it was peasants. It was peasant revolution, and therefore, far within 30 years, Mao Zedong became popular and the government large mass support. It means that, and Mao Zedong had the large government support in his actions. Something which you have to note in our mind is that there was no specific training for those who wanted to join the revolution. It involved all peasants It started in the rural areas and spread to town, and this because the revolution in China involved more peasants rather than the working class, and that's why Marxist scholars have argued that the Chinese revolution was against the Marxist way of conducting a socialist revolution. You can see that Chinese revolution was started from the rural areas and it spread later to the urban or town areas. So you can see that, and that's why Marxist scholars have been arguing that the Chinese revolution was against the ways of Marxists to conduct socialist revolution. After the revolution, the following political and economic developments was seen in China, and this was due to the various strategies adopted in order to build China. It means that after the revolution of 1949, it means that there was different developments, economically, also politically. It means that the Chinese were witnessing different political and economic developments after Chinese Revolution of 1949. And let us see those developments, economic and political developments. The first one was industrialization policy. This policy, Chinese did the following. It means that industrialization policy was implemented in China in order to ensure that the economy of Chinese is growing faster and faster. And this industrialization policy was done through the following ways. The first one, the government ensured that there is nationalization of all the industries which were previously under the imperialists and the Japanese control. And these industries were put under the control of the government in municipalities in the rural areas. It means that the first thing that was done by the Chinese government after the revolution was to nationalize all industries that was belonging to the foreigners, it means the Japanese and the Westerners, and that's why made those industries to be under the control of the government in municipalities and the rural areas. Another way, at Shanghai and Hong Kong, a modification of the control of the private owned of industries were done whereby workers were allowed to supervise their employers' activities, working conditions, raw materials, and sell the finished goods. It means that at Shanghai and Hong Kong, a modification of the control of the private ownership of industries were done whereby workers were allowed to supervise their employers' activities, working conditions, raw material, and sell the finished goods. And that was another way of ensuring the industrialization policy in China is well implemented and successfully after the revolution in 1949. Another, the Soviet Socialist Republic mode of heavy industries was adopted during the 1953 to 1957. That is, there were 5 years development plan, and this was capital intensive, which led to heavy industrialization in China. It means that there was the adoption of 5 years development plan that was extended from 1953 to 1957, and that was intended to make the capital intensive that could lead to the heavy industrialization in China. Also, another way that was made the industrial policy or industrialization policy to be successful was the great leap forward of 1958 and 1960 was adopted, and this policy was firstly industrialization, whereby people were allowed to use their own initiatives towards industrialization. It means that here, during that time, people were allowed to use their initiatives toward the industrialization. Let us see on land. On land policy, it means that the industrialization policy was the first policy that was made to ensure that there is economic development in China after revolution. And the second one is on the land policy. It means the policy that was made on the land. The policy that was made on the land. The Chinese government under the Communist Party, of Mao Zedong, who was the leader of Communist Party in China, did the following strategies on the land. What was done what was done concerning with the land? All the land was taken from the landlords and given to the peasants. To mean that before the revolution, the land was owned by the landlords, but soon after the revolution, the all land was confiscated from the landlords to the peasants. The Great Revolution on land was done whereby the rapid change in the agricultural period was adapted, such as to improve the varieties of seeds in order to increase production, and the use of fertilizers, prevention of soil erosion, land reclamation, deep plowing, plant protection, cross planting, floods control in the river of Yangtze, Yangtze-Kiang and Xinjiang, and the One War, as well as pests and diseases control, irrigation system and seeds improvements. It means that we can see that the Great Revolution on land was done whereby the rapid changes was done in agricultural production, whereby different improvements was done, and such improvements was to improve the varieties of seeds in order to increase production among the Chinese population, to ensure that there is enough food and other raw materials. Also, the use of fertilizers, to mean that there was the use of fertilizers to ensure that there is increase of production. Also, prevention of soil erosion, prevention of soil erosion, and that could make the soil to lose their fertility. Also, land reclamation, it means to turn the unuseful land into useful land or productive land, that was done in China after the revolution of 1949. But also, deep plowing was done. Plant protection, it means that there was protecting the plants. Protecting plants and to plant. Floods control in the river of Yangtze-Kiang, Xinjiang and the Guangdong. These were the rivers which were which are present in China: Yangtze-Kiang, Xinjiang, and the Guangdong. And these are the rivers which were bringing the floods towards the location of Chinese. Also, pests and disease were controlled, and irrigation system and seed improvements was done. This was another way that was done under the land policy. Also, there was another thing that was done. It means that the research stations were also built to make quick maturing and high yield seeds and diseases, as well as pest controlled drugs. It means that research stations were also built to make quick maturing and high yield seeds, disease and pest controlled drugs was made in order to ensure that in order to ensure that the production on the land is increasing. But also collective farming in China was adapted and implemented, where by a mutual aid term of 1949 up to 1952. This included neighboring villages in the rural areas could cultivate together, weeding together, sowing together, and harvesting this. And this speed up the work and increased the efficiency. And also there was agricultural cooperatives starting from 1953 up to 1957, and the 5 years development plan was proposing to make the Chinese population to do according on the basing on the agricultural production. Another way was people's communes of 1958. This was the largest agricultural period unit comparing several people in China, but also it included factors, factories, shops, schools, big farms, and banks, whereby in these communes each member was agreed a task to perform by the administration. It means that people's communes of 1958, this was the largest agricultural period unit comparing several people in China, but also it included factors, factories, shops, schools, big farms, and banks, whereby in these communes or communities, each member was agreed a task to perform by the administration. Also, let us see the advantage of communes that was formed in China. The first one was it enabled people to conduct a central planned agricultural production system through proper use of human labor force. It means that it enabled people to conduct a central planned agricultural production system through proper use of human labor force. Also, the communes consolidated the capital resources available in China. It means that the communes consolidated the capital resources available in China. And the third one was it means it diversity or diversification of economy. It means that the economy of China was diversified or diversified, and thus was the number 3. And the last one was the commune. The commune eliminated the differences between the rich and the poor. It means that the communes, through cooperation, removed the classes between rich and the poor. So let us see the advantages or achievements of Chinese Revolution. Advantages and the achievements of Chinese Revolution. The revolution changed this after looking the advantages of communes that was established in Chinese after revolution to ensure that there is cooperation and unity among the Chinese. So I would like to wind up our session there and give you exercise which has 2 questions. And the first one is explain the causes of Chinese Revolution. And the second one, show the economic and political developments in China after revolution. So I would like to thank you for watching our session. Welcome again.